tonight. He's going to be talking with us about taking back our nation and retaining our rights. And I'm sure that people in the audience probably want to ask him a couple questions or two about his campaign. And I'll tell you a little bit about him real quick. Joseph Stevens was born on June 22nd, 1963 in Fort Campbell, Kentucky, and raised in Lake City, Florida. Joseph was blessed to be the youngest in a family of 9. Mr. and Mrs. Stevens raised their children to love the Lord and work hard. Brought up on the foundation of the Bible with values and morals, Joseph's love of people developed at an early age. Just as the name Joseph means God will increase, Joseph has made it his goal to give back. Serving 8 years in the U.S. Army, Joseph had the opportunity to travel the world and learn from many cultures and languages. At the age of 27, the Lord brought Joseph an amazing wife, now Mrs. Okay, I'm sorry, I don't know how you pronounce your first name.
Amazing.
Amazing? So you're an amazing wife? Okay. Thus, A.J. Stevens and Associates, Inc. was fashioned as a business based on helping those who cannot protect themselves. Joseph and his wife knew firsthand of the foreclosure process. He and his wife set out to stand against the fraud that these banks and corporations commit against these citizens. Joseph knew becoming a fraud foreclosure investigator would give him and his wife the voice to speak up against these wrongdoings. With the nation he loves that calls home with such turmoil, Joseph wants to begin the steps of healing and to bring this country back to its roots. A strong believer of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, Joseph knows that as a republic, our great nation will not collapse unless we destroy ourselves. That in order to truly save the future of America and fulfill the title of Americans, we must educate our nation on the humble intent of our forefathers. The founders of our beloved nation established a republic so that we would never have our unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness infringed on. Property rights were perceived as the foundation of liberty, and security of private property was the bedrock of freedom. Once elected, Joseph can take a stand and give voice to those who have once silenced with the power of the state to truly defend homeowners. This endeavor is just the beginning of an overdue healing. So please welcome with me our best hope in taking back our government, Mr. Joseph Stevens.
That's actually the first time I heard that read out loud. First off, I want to thank you all for coming out here. I know all of you have, very busy lives. You have many things that you're trying to accomplish, and a lot of things are tugging at your heart, just as we do as candidates. And so it's really about you. When I first started coming out to run as a candidate, I was approached by a couple of different organizations that tried to encourage me not to run for office because they were saying that sitting where you're sitting has far more power than being where I'm trying to go. And really what they're trying to say is that to move an election, to accomplish anything, to get out your vote, really it takes 1/3 of the vote plus 1. Okay? It's about organizing. Just as you stood up here and said that you all need to reach out to your neighbors and to your friends and your family members and say, hey, you need to come down here with me. We need to do that. You need to do it for your churches, and you need to do it for these meetings, because if we're not reaching out to the people around us, if it's just us, whose fault is it? These things aren't telecasted. We're not on TV and radio. So really the only way that the Tea Party in general and the conservative word can get out is for we the people, you the people, to tell people, get off your chairs, get out in your communities, whatever you're doing. As we're out here and getting petitions signed, getting these petitions signed has been one of the most amazing experiences of my life. I have met so many different people. Some of them different good, some of them way out there. I've met people, one gentleman that I met while we were at the car show over here, he was born in 1918, a veteran of 2 world wars. And when I talked to him, he stood up, he looked me in the eye, his voice didn't shake, and when he shook my hand, I knew he was shaking my hand. I meet politicians all the time that I can't get them to look in my face while I'm talking to them. I can't honestly get the sense that they're really hearing me. And when I bring up these hardline issues, these things that we're adamant about because of who we are, they want to turn and walk away. Majority of you were here, because I remember when Chris Ann Hall was here, the constitutional attorney, and she was relating her direct contact with John Gates, who is the head of the Republican Party. And when she brought up our liberty and our defenses and what we should be doing, he literally said that people like her should be hung or shot.
Oh my God.
This is the person that represents us? The person that's in charge of those that represent us? You know, why do we allow these people, John Boehners and so on, to retain office? Why do we keep voting for the same people? Is it because we're trying to pick the lesser of two evils? Instead of picking the lesser of two evils, why don't we do something really radical and pick people that we think actually will go do what they said? Someone that whatever he told you on Monday is what he's doing on Friday. This is really what we need to do. And I know this is not the regular line of speech that most people would say as they get up here, but I'm not a politician. And I hope I never become one. I honestly am interested in being a public servant. My full-time job is I'm a corporate fraud investigator. I take on banks and foreclosure issues every day. And to me, the civil rights movement of today is in our property rights and in our foreclosure. If you went into a courtroom, anytime they're having foreclosures, just go in, walk in, sit in the courtroom, and listen to what happens. Listen to the extreme prejudice that our citizens have to go through. That banks are treated like, oh, no problem, you can do that. Oh, I'm sorry, you want to reopen the case? You forgot to put your evidence in the first time? Yeah, no problem. But when a homeowner says, well, Your Honor, I failed to give you this kind, I'm sorry, this case is already closed. And it's not even close to being fair. It's rare to have a client come into a courtroom and feel that the judge truly heard him. Now, I'm not someone that's going to say that all banks are committing fraud and that all homeowners are right. There's a lot of people that are in foreclosure simply because of their own bad actions, their own bad faith. Granted. But in a courtroom, you should at least get heard on your side. We really need judicial and banking reform, especially here in the state of Florida, where we have the third highest foreclosure rate in the nation. I'm sure every one of you either has someone in your families or someone close to you, or a long list of boarded up houses on your street like the one right across the way here that's completely boarded up. Where's the families? We're talking about dying communities. Where's the families? Where are the children? If we're not reaching out to young people, if we're not creating jobs for young people, how can we grow? But everything is being restricted on the small business owner. I'm sure many of you here are small business owners, because that's usually what this kind of group is filled with, is people that are small business owners. And you notice every year it gets harder and harder for you to provide opportunities for those people and those families that come to you and say, I need help. It's harder to make that payroll and to help them get where they need to be. And it's because of those politicians on both sides of the aisle that have been in office for 40 years. We have got to take back our country. I love the idea of the Article 5 Convention of States that they're seeking to limit this. You have the power. All you have to do is not vote for those people anymore, and we won't have them anymore. We need to vote no on incumbents for a while until we can freshen up the stock, get other people in there. start doing things like every time you elect an official, and the first time that he said he was going to do something and he went the other way, replace him. Don't give him a second chance. Okay? Yeah, it's called treason. Especially when you hear these politicians and they say, well, you know, you can check my record, I follow the Constitution 90% of the time. Great, we only need to prosecute you 10% of the time. But we do need to prosecute them. We've held Eric Holder and other people in contempt of court that made no move to follow through and do anything about it. What is the value of holding them in contempt if you're not going to take an action? But where's the outcry from the people? There is an outcry. Unfortunately, what was that new word I heard? In the media? The enemy media? Okay? They're preventing the words of the conservatives from being heard because they're trying everything they can to force us into communism. I'll let you know that I'm completely off my notes and not in any way following along. I just have this thing that when I stand up, you know, I get in front of people and I listen to all of this that's going on, this great movement that we just had up there in Lake City, which proudly I like to say I'm from, where people are really, truly standing up and making a difference, getting involved. We, the people, have to be organized. There are many different things out here to show you how to organize and to focus on set issues so that your focused agenda can be heard. The major problem we're having within the Republican Party and getting out our message is it's too garbled. There's 100 different things that we want to do at one time. We don't need to do 100 things at one time. We need to focus on 4 or 5. We need to start with our property rights and our water rights and our Second Amendment rights. Okay? Because when they are trying to push, I'm sure all of you saw the issues that they're putting up about the springs and the issues they're trying to do on the springs. And it sounds like, oh yeah, we need to take care of our conservation. Absolutely we do. But that's not what this bill is about. It's about controlling your ability to get water. They've made it so that it's illegal that you cannot live off the grid in the state of Florida. So if you own a nice large piece of land and you have the ability for solar power and to have your own well in the ground and all these things, they're making it illegal. You have to depend on the state. Does it sound like a free nation to you? Okay? We've got to stand up and take it back. You know, when I was a child, at 8 years old, being from a family of 9, I found out if I wanted to have anything, including a pack of gum, I was going to have to go out and work for it. Because my father, who was a community college professor, just didn't have the money to do all those things for everyone. So we built our own bicycles. We had a garden in the backyard that we grew, and we maintained these things. We were your average, everyday American that you can't really find on the streets anymore today. But at 8 years old, I started my own business. I was raking lawns and such, and by the time I was 9, someone in the neighborhood, there was an older gentleman who could no longer take care of his properties. He made a deal with me that he was going to give me a lawnmower. He was going to give it to me, and I could use it to take care of other people's stuff. But I had to mow his lawn for free. Sounded like a good deal. So I took the mower. Actually, it was a good mower. It was a lawnmower. I liked it. So I had my bicycle, which was my vehicle. I had a trailer, which was that mower. I could put all my gear on. And I managed to grow that thing to eventually around some 40 people. But when I was 9, my father encouraged me, 1, to get a bank account so that I could keep track of everything, and 2, to actually have it incorporated. Well, I was far too young to do any of that, so of course he had to do all of it for me. But by the time I was 11, someone else decided that they wanted that name that I had incorporated under, which was Poodle Lawn Care, TLC. And because it was a really neat sounding name, he came out and Dad set up the meeting and they sat down with me, and he's sitting on this side of the table, I'm sitting over here, and Dad's in the middle. As he starts explaining to me what he wants to accomplish, he would slide a piece of paper out into the middle of the table. And I'm like, whoa. Okay, but what about, office equipment. You know, what am I going to do? Because you're saying that you want to buy my business, so I'm not going to be able to work to do this anymore. Well, what do I do with all my equipment? How much equipment do you have? So I told him everything that I had. He made a list and slid another paper out to the middle of the table. And I'm like, well, what happens to all my clients? Who's going to take care of them? How many clients do you have? I told him. He doubted me. My father showed him the paper where we actually had the list. He slid another paper out to the table. And we finally had gone back and forth until all my questions had been answered. I felt satisfied that everybody was going to take care of. I understood that it was something my father apparently wanted me to do, so I finally agreed and we shook hands. And my father came around to tell me how proud he was of me. And I said, Dad, I got one question. He said, yeah, what's that? I said, why do you keep sliding that piece of paper to the middle of the table? I didn't understand the money at that time. But I do understand that 11 years old, I sold my first business for a profit. And from that time, other than serving in the military, I've really been self-employed. My whole life, I've had to be the provider for myself and for all those around me. I understand what hard work is. I understand the value of getting your hands dirty. I understand the value of not having it instantaneously handed to you. You know, people talk about, well, things should be fast. I'm like, well, that's true. You can get a Kia in 13 hours, but it takes 6 months to make a Rolls Royce. What do you want? We're talking about changing a nation, taking back our future for our children. This is not going to happen tomorrow. This is not something that we get to show up for one weekend and rah, 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 and it's all going to change. It's going to take a commitment. It's going to take grandparents working with their children and grandchildren. It's going to take schools that completely and totally reject Common Core. The problem you're having in Leesburg, you've got one school that's making inroads and they're having success, but they're being told that they can't continue to do that because they're different from other people. And Common Core needs to have everybody in one little box doing the same exact thing at the same exact time like good little communists. And I'm sorry, but that's not the nation that we live in. I don't learn in the standard format. When I was in school, for several years, they kept trying to put me in remedial classes because every time we had a test, I would score in the 90% or higher, but on the daily work, I would never do it. And they kept trying to think that I was cheating. They would always make me put a desk way off to the side, away from everyone else, so the teacher could watch me, because they couldn't believe that I was passing all my tests when I wasn't doing my daily work. But the problem was I was bored out of my mind with the system. One day, by accident, someone put me into an advanced class. And I managed to skip a year in school because they found out that I didn't have a learning disability. My problem was that I was simply bored, and if you told me something once, I got it. You didn't have to tell me the same thing for 5 days. But this is what they want to do to everyone. They want to put us all in a box, and they want to keep us there. It's really easy for me to get into all the things that they're doing to us chemically and sound like I'm a far left-wing conspiracist. It's not a conspiracy when it's true. The reason that they're putting the chemicals in your food, the reason they're putting the fluoride in the water, the reason they're doing the things that they're doing is because it is a direct attempt at dumbing down the populace, and there's also a direct attempt at decreasing the population to make them easier to control. Why? How can we continue to be the greatest nation on earth if we're going to allow ourselves to be last in line for everything? Have you looked at how America stacks up in our education system compared to other nations? We're the worst. If you look at our crime rates and you think, oh, the murder rate in America is horrible, really? If you take the states that have the highest gun laws, Washington, D.C. and Illinois, and you remove those, you find that we have some of the lowest crime rates after you remove those states. You'll find that states that have the very least gun laws also have the least amount of violent crime. Why won't anyone talk about it? Why is in the media, not bringing these things out. Okay? We are going to have to make some very radical things in this nation. I was so greatly encouraged this weekend, or this past week, as I watched the actions going on out in Nevada over the Clive and Bundy Ranch, as they were trying, this family that's been on the same land for 180 years, that they've been farming this land, and suddenly they're going to try to force them off of it because the cattle might be hurting the tortoise. Do you have any idea how many nuclear bombs they've set off in Nevada? You're worried about cattle hurting the tortoise? Never mind that Harry Reid's son is trying to make a solar farm out here. But the encouraging part was that 5,000 armed Americans, everyday Americans, known as the militia, on horseback, showed up and escorted the 200 federal land agents, which is ridiculous that the Bureau of Land Management is a military force. But they escorted them off the Bundy property. This is what needs to happen across America. It's what needs to happen in our big centers. I know it sounds crazy. I know we're talking about the possibility of violence. But America didn't exist without that. We had to fight for everything we had. You know, I'm sorry, if you go back to the Tea Party, blood was shed. Many people laid down their lives to stand where we are. And it's going to take a little bit more. And I don't want my grandchildren to have to pay with their lives for something that we were supposed to give them as a free gift. Okay? I love all that you guys were talking about with your Liberty First organization out there, because I am a member and I've been through the classes and I've graduated from it. It's not about being violent. No one ever wants violence. We don't want bloodshed on our streets. As a soldier and being in our military intelligence, I know firsthand the things that I wish I'd never seen. Things that no one should ever have to see. But I also know the necessity of standing when no one else is willing to stand. To having to go in and fight when there's absolutely no hope of winning, because it's the only right thing to do. If we say, oh, it's just going to be too hard. Okay, go ahead and sign yourself into the internment camp. Go ahead and volunteer to be a slave. Quit calling yourself a citizen. Okay? We are citizens. We are sovereign citizens of the United States. Not because we joined a sovereign club and took our name back off of some roster. No, you're born a sovereign individual. You're not a corporation. I get out here and I just get so compelled and so overwhelmed by the situation we're in, and I cannot stand still and not do something. I know many of you have questions. I am thoroughly prepared to answer the common questions about Common Core, guns in schools, you know, the common things that you're dealing with, and I'm happy to deal with those things with you. But I really hope that we can take a chance to rally each and every one of you, that each one of you will make it a mission, no matter who the speaker is, to bring one other person with you every time you come. If everyone can bring one, how long is it going to be until you've completely overwhelmed this building? Okay? And that's what we need to be doing across America. I don't care if you're in your church, in your social group, and whatever group you're a part of, bring someone with you. Take that effort to just once during that week, reach out and get another person. Okay? Again, I've got notes that I'm not even going to bother to try to look at. But for any of you that do have questions on any particular subject, please feel free. And also I want to take a moment to say, congratulations, Terry, on getting that done.
Thanks.
Getting out here and trying to sign those petitions is very, very difficult. Though, again, the meeting the people and the stories that we hear, and the community members that we're able to find, which I also want to say, as we're talking about reaching out to minorities, I have found a huge number of Black and Spanish people that are committed conservative Republicans that are going out of their way to make a difference and to get us invited into other organizations, is to get people to understand that the Democratic Party does not in any way represent the minorities. Everything that they're doing is what's killing the minorities. The Republicans want everybody to have a minimum wage job. The Republicans want everybody to own their own business. It's not that we only cater to business owners. It's that we want everyone to have the right to be in charge of his own destiny. That is where they're going when they say, oh, they only care about the business owners. No, they care about you being in charge of your life and making more opportunities for others. So I'm going to open this up to questions. Anyone, since I've rambled on so long?
Joseph,
Yes.
thank you for coming out. One question, why are you running for House District 31 rep, Florida rep?
The reason I'm running in general is because I want to affect change in the judicial and banking systems here. As I said, going into court every day and as an expert witness, not as an attorney, praise God, I'm not an attorney. As I go in there as an expert witness and I sit down and I listen to these things and I listen to the exceedingly weak arguments given for these things, and many times I have judges tell me that, I realize we have all the facts, I know all this is in our favor, I know that the law lines up like this, but this is the name of the judge, and because that judge is on the bench, no matter what you say today, we're not going to win. And I'm like, I'm still a person of faith, we're still going to go forward with this. And many times they're right. The judges are completely and totally biased towards the corporation, and it does not matter what answer you have. I hear judges say, I guess I'm going to go ahead and make law from the bench. I've heard them say that in open court because the person that was there did not bring a court reporter and the judge could get away from it. If you ever have to go to court for any reason, do yourself a favor and bring a court reporter.
I studied the Constitution, and I'm a freeman too. One of them guys back and stood up, went to the court, but I found out that we have the rights and the power. And that power is in our election, but also it's in the Constitution. When they take the oath and they violate that, it's treated as punishable by death. And another thing.
Wouldn't that be great?
Pardon me?
Wouldn't that be great?
And all we got to do, we have the tools. Take one of these little books, anybody, and send and get some, only a couple bucks. But all we need is in that Constitution, the Bill of Rights there. And it takes, listen, the reason I have to say this, and I appreciate you listening, I'll sit down when you want to. But the thing of it is, I've been through those fires. And look, I've been locked up, put in court, I've been in court a lot of times. 12 years I followed. And they didn't take anything off me, because every time I went in, I'd ask them, where's their jurisdiction? Where's your power? Where did I give up my God-given rights for your unconstitutional law and your treasonous? And I use this. It's a foreign order, and until the day that we put, like we had our prayer here this morning, the day we put God first and His Scripture and stand like a man to protect our family and our community, and unless we do that, instead of sending our kids over to be slaughtered for this foreign order, and we wake up and become men and women and stand. They're scared to death of us.
Yeah.
All we got to do, listen, when you mentioned that our rights, listen, I mean, they button up. I sued 5 lawyers for $250,000 apiece in New York. I never got no money out of them, New York, Pennsylvania. But I'll tell you what, man, they were scared to death, because they cannot come back on you on nothing when you practice that Bill of Rights and the Constitution. And we got that's our threats for the saved. But I'll tell you one thing, this Constitution, they took an oath to that. They're bound.
Now all we need is a few million more people like you.
Well, I'll tell you what, all it takes is power. Listen, I believe this thing is winding up, and I don't believe we can, but I'll tell you what, it's a joy at least to stand up and fight.
Yes.
And watch them to run. We can shut this thing down real fast, because you know what it is? when you cut the money off, you know what happens? Man, they run, because they want that money. I'm talking about the federal income tax. I got out of that 30 years ago, and I don't have no problem. I wish they come after me. It puts me in court where people can hear me again. Just like you're listening to me here tonight. And you can say, well, I don't care what you say, but you heard the truth yesterday.
Yeah, I honestly believe, as you said, that it is coming, that there is a time of revolution that's coming, and I hope and I pray that we can do this civilly and through the court as it should be, by taking back our court system and eliminating these corrupt judges that are literally running everything. I mean, the judicial system is being used to rob all the citizens of their rights, especially their property rights and such, so that you have nothing to stand upon. And once they've taken all that away from you, where can you stand? As they come to take away your Second Amendment rights, which I guess everybody misses that little part where it says shall not be infringed. I don't know where they get the idea that they can in any way tell you to list them or register them or count them or tax them or any other thing to them. What part of shall not infringe is unclear or in some way ambiguous. Okay? But I will encourage you all, as you're reading your rights, go to the 10th Amendment. That's the one that sews everything else together. It doesn't look like any of your other amendments. Go read it and see what it's telling you, because it really, really, really gives you your abilities and where you're going to stand. But you need to stand. As I've literally had people within the party, as I talk about what I want to do within the banking communities, which was things along the lines that J.F. Kennedy was talking about before they shot him, and been told that I could get shot for what I'm trying to do. I'm like, well, you know what? My beautiful wife and I over there, we're both Christians. Our children are Christian, our grandchildren, our families. We've traveled this whole world. We've seen everything we want to see. And at this point, we have absolutely nothing to lose. If I go and stand in front of my Maker and He says, what did you do with what I gave you? I'll be able to say, well, good Lord, I was doing just that when they got here. You know, no one wants to get shot. We don't want, not only do we not want to shed our blood, but we don't want to have the guilt and the problems of having shed someone else's. But we have to stand, completely stand in this day, because it doesn't take, we are probably less than 2 presidential terms away from being completely and 100% a communist nation. Yeah. And if we get a Hillary Clinton in office, you can kiss yourself goodbye. Okay? We have got to take it back. We have got to take the Senate and not just the House. We have got to make a point of going all the way. But please, for each of you, I will continue to say, whenever you come out to this or any meeting, bring someone with you. Even if he's a homeless person that just wants a place to get some coffee and cookies, bring him with you. Because the more people that we bring out, the more people that we can get the truth into, the more difference we can make.
Amen.
Yeah, I've been watching these election campaigns now since 2006. And I've been writing a blog on that. And I've been making videos of these meetings. And I really have a hard time considering you to be a serious candidate. And you've only raised $500. You have a list here, there must be 20 to 30 failed to file letters, returned mail, and returned mail notices from the Education Department of the state of Florida.
Yes.
You've even received a referral letter to the FEC saying that they wanted you reported to them because you hadn't filed reports that you were supposed to. You don't show any expenditures at all, and yet you have some documents back here which indicate you have spent some money. And your Facebook page has a rant on there and hardly anything else. Your website has no issues. It doesn't talk about any of the issues. Let's see, there are only 343 petitions. You said there's 700 you've collected now. And so how do we take you seriously? you talk mostly about federal issues. This is a Florida state position, not federal. And we've had other candidates talk about some federal issues like Obamacare, but also talk about legal ones. I don't even think you know any of the legislative priorities of the county board or the school district or the hospital district. And I question whether you've invested much time in this at all, and why should we even consider you a candidate?
I hear you, and I'm not going to run from it. Going back first to the issues with the campaign about the reporting of the finances, I can tell you the person that I had previously that was being as a campaign manager, I've had no end of trouble with. And when it comes to going through the reporting process, which is not an easy thing to keep up with, it's been a bear. I have, even as late as last week, gone in, reporting in people that have given money into the campaign and still can't figure out why it won't show up. So, yes, there's a lot of issues out there on that. You will find that all those things that were behind on late reports have been caught up. They are 100% on the reporting, and I'm personally still trying to figure out why I can't get all these funds to show up, or the reports I've put in on the expenditures. I don't know. It doesn't seem normal that my reports would show up any different from anybody else's, but we're there. That's what you reported is the actual record. So I'm not going to try to get past that. As far as dealing with the different county issues and stuff, I have been around, talked with the county, with hospitals, with teachers, with different organizations, trying to see where those people that are the experts in those fields and that are actually conservatives are trying to move us. When I come and deal primarily with the communities out here, I rarely get questions on those items. And that's probably the main reason that I don't spend all my time talking about it.
But that's what a legislator is supposed to do, is be aware of it.
I'm going to reiterate that point where I said I'm not a politician, I never have been. Having been in the military and having been dealt with many different types of businesses and different forums, I'm a very quick study, and primarily, if nothing else, I'm out here to hold other people to task to say, we really have to make a change. If we're going to elect more people that are a part of the system, accustomed to the system, and going to follow the system, and continue the course, we're going to continue the course right into a wall off of a cliff. We're at a place where we really need to do an about-face. We need to look at this differently. We need to go about it differently. I'm not a politician. I'm not going to pretend to be a politician. And I'm not going to try to follow the course of a standard politician. I very much care about the communities and about the issues that we're dealing with. Again, for any questions that people want to bring to me, I'm happy to go over it, but I'm just tired of dealing with the same old and getting to the same place. Every year we elect new politicians, and that politician comes out and finishes what the last one started, and we're not backing up. We're not going anyplace different. So, you know, I appreciate what you're doing very much. I appreciate your attention to the individual candidates and the blogs that you write. Many times I read your articles and take a joy in the left hooks that you've given so many times to other people. And so I cannot sidestep when you try to give one to me, because that's your job, is to hold all of us in place and make sure that we're going out there. But I wasn't trying to look like other candidates. I wasn't trying to be that place. So if I look like I'm ranting against the system, if I look like I'm not following course, you're right. Guilty as charged. I'm not your regular guy. Was there anybody else? I think you had something here.
That was my question.
Okay, no problem. Anything?